When the stalemate began in World War I, Germany wanted to end it as soon as they could. They didn't want to get two-punch combo by France, Britain, and Russia. Germany tried many things, but none of them worked except chemical gas. The first major time chemical gas was used was the Second Battle of Ypres. This broke the Hague Convention barrier, which everyone who was involved in World War I signed, and broke a technological barrier. With these barriers broken, both of the powers started to engage in chemical warfare and affected what chemical gases we can use today. The Hague Convention of 1899 was proposed by Tsar Nicholas II and took place in Hague, Netherlands. The convention started on May 18, 1899 and ended in July 29, 1899. The end result of the Hague Convention was that it made 3 international treaties. The first treaty was no use of poison gas, the second was no use of expanding bullets, and third was prohibiting discharges of projectiles or explosives from balloons. Fritz Haber was known as the father of chemical warfare. He created the 3 most deadliest chemical gases in World War I: chlorine gas, phosphogen gas, and the deadliest mustard gas. After the use of chlorine gas on the battlefield, his wife killed herself because of this deadly weapon. Even though he invented one of the most scariest weapons of mankind, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1918. As most of you guys think that Germany was the first one to use chemical gas, it was France who used it first. They threw tear gas grenades at the Germans, but tear gas was the weakest of the chemical gases. Tear gas will cause an irritation in the eye, making the victim tear up. If used in big doses, it will cause a temporary blindness, and if you inhaled it, you have breathing difficulties. What makes the gas the weakest is that the symptoms will go away after about 30 minutes. After the French used tear gas, the Germans trying to use XYLYL bromide on the Russians, but most of the gas froze because of the temperatures being so low. The Second Battle of Ypres was the first major time chemical gas was used. The Germans decided to use chlorine gas to let the wind carry the gas to the French. As a German soldier named Willy Seaborg described the day as, quote, "It was a beautiful day, the sun was shining where there was grass, it was blazing green." The Germans decided to release the gas around supper time, quote, "As this great cloud of green-gray gas was forming in front of us, we suddenly heard the French yelling. In less than a minute, they started with the most rifle and machine gun fire I have ever heard. Every field artillery gun, every machine gun, every rifle that the French had must have been firing. I never heard such a noise." When the gas reached the French line, the shooting started to die down, and when the gas cleared, the Germans walked into the French lines. Everything was dead, and nothing was alive. Quote, "All of the animals had come out of the holes to die. Dead rabbits, moles, rats, and mice were everywhere. When we got to the French lines, the trenches were empty, but in a half a mile, the bodies of French soldiers were everywhere. It was unbelievable. Then we saw there was some English. You can see where the men had clawed out their faces and throats just trying to get a breath." As a Canadian soldier named 18 Hunter described the gas as a, quote, "a burning sensation in the head, red-hot needles in the lungs, and the throat seized as by a strangler." With both powers knowing how to effectively use chemical gases, now they were wondering how to counter them. Before the gas masks were invented, there were a couple of ways of how to counter chemical gas. The first way was changing the wind, but this was purely based on luck. The second way was to get your handkerchief and soak it in water or your urine. This would kind of neutralize the effects of the gas or slow the effects down. Technically, this method is like a DIY gas mask if you look at it a certain way. There are probably more other ways of how to counter chemical gases, but the most effective and common way of how to counter chemical gases is by using a gas mask. The black veil was the first gas mask. It was made after the Second Battle of Ypres. For the Allies, the black veil will be dipped in a solution that will protect the wearer for 5 minutes against chlorine gas. Since the black veil will only cover the mouth and nose, soldiers will wear goggles to protect their eyes from the gas too. The next gas mask was the British Hyper helmet. This mask was made in May of 1915. This mask will protect the whole head and had a rectangular transparent part to see out of. There was more gas masks like the British Hyper helmet, but minor improvements. Skipping over those gas masks, the M2 gas mask was made in April 1916 and was made by the French. This gas mask was a popular gas mask because it would protect the wearer from up to 5 hours against phosphogen gas. The best gas mask the Allies had was the small box respirator gas mask. This gas mask was made in late 1916 and was made by the British. Gas mask wouldn't protect your whole head, but protected your face. It had these plastic or glass lenses to see out of, and had electrical straps for your head so it wouldn't feel too loose. How the gas mask works is that when the wearer breathes, the gas goes through a filter unit. Inside the filter unit there was activated charcoal, and most of the chemical gas would be absorbed into the charcoal. To make sure no poison gas got passed through the charcoal, they added a second filter on top just to make sure. This filter is made up of cotton and wire gases. Then the air will go through a flexible tube and breathed in. But what about Germany? The Germans used the GUI masker. The GUI masker used drum filters to counter chemical gases. The first was called a Linie masker. It was made in August or September of 1915. It was made pretty quickly, which led to it being bad because it had one filter in the drum filter. The second was called the Banner masker, the one on the left. This gas mask was made in either December or January of 1915/1916. This mask made improvements to the Linie masker and had a screening filter so it could be changed while in battle. The third model was kind of a Rambo masker, the one on the right. It was made in the spring or the summer of 1916. This gas mask was smaller than the other two so the user could breathe better, and the filter plate for the mask was shrinked in diameter. The Battle of Loos was the first time the British used chemical gas. The battle started on September 25, 1915 and ended on October 14, 1915. On September 25th, the British decided to launch 5,100 chlorine gas cylinders. After waiting a while, the British troops began to advance, but the gas didn't make it to the German lines. While the British were waiting, the wind that was carrying the chlorine gas started to slow down and then stop. This didn't really bother the British that much because they had gas masks, but since this is 1915, the gas masks weren't very good. With this, the British suffered 2,632 casualties with 7 deaths. Even though the British lost 2,632 men due to the gas, they still managed to capture their objective. The effects of chemical gas on the people and land. Mustard gas was the only one that affected the land, but I'll talk about that later. I already talked about the effects of tear gas when I was talking about who used chemical gas first. Chlorine gas reacts with the waters inside your lungs, which causes some form of acid. With the acids inside your lungs, your body tries to get it out by coughing and vomiting. This would also cause an annoying pain in your eye. Since chlorine gas is water suitable, you can put a watery rag on your mouth. The gas will come in contact with the rag and will neutralize the gas. Phosgene gas reacts to the proteins of your alveoli in your lungs and disrupts your blood-to-air barrier, which causes suffocation. Phosgene gas also causes coughing and irritation to your eye and a disruption to your respiratory tract. Your respiratory tract is your passage the air goes through to get to your lungs, like your nostrils and throat. Most of the time, people will die from this gas because it will cause a buildup of fluids in your lungs that causes suffocation. The only flaw about phosgene gas is that it takes almost 48 hours for the symptoms to occur. As chlorine and phosgene gases were known for killing troops, tear gas and mustard gas were known for disabling troops, so they couldn't fight. Mustard gas was a blistering agent. It causes big blisters with yellow fluids in them. Put on clothes won't help because mustard gas can penetrate textiles. When you feel an irritation on your skin, that's when the blister will start forming. Mustard gas can also damage your eyes and your respiratory tract. Gas masks also prove useless because mustard gas can penetrate the gas mask filters. What makes mustard gas more terrifying is that it can sink into the ground and stay there for days or weeks. The colder the ground is, the longer it can stay. After chemical warfare in World War I, the Geneva Protocol will prohibit the use of chemical gas or poison gas as a weapon in 1925. Nowadays, people use chemical gas to put down huge riots, to kill rodents, live inside your house, or to put you asleep for a medical operation. A lot of allied countries do chemical weapons research, so if somebody uses a chemical gas, they will know how to counter it. Chemical warfare in World War I also made the U.S. Army Chemical Corps. Even though it's a war crime using chemical gas as a weapon of war, countries still feel it. In all, chemical warfare in World War I caused about 100,000 deaths, but it only caused less than 1% of the total World War I fatalities. Even though chemical warfare in World War I was terrible, it helped us in the long run. It was the first weapon that made people think using this as a weapon is unnecessary human suffering and should be stopped. Today, chemical weapons, bioweapons, nuclear weapons, flamethrowers, blinding lasers, pointless bullets, and much more are all banned from using as a weapon of war. The use of chemical weapons in World War I helped us define what weapons we can use during a war.